Welcome to the session, everyone. I'm Rachel Blackburn. I'm on the corporate operations team at Oracle, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. This webinar is part of the weekly Oracle at Oracle webinar series, where we have the opportunity to hear from the executive team that reimagined Oracle. In this series of webinars, we share insights from our own journey to the cloud and demonstrate how we're using Oracle Cloud to power our business and enable exceptional customer and employee experiences. And we'll share our learnings as we transform so that others can do the same. So let's dive into today's topic. Over the course of the next 30 minutes or so, you'll hear how Oracle is transforming our customer purchasing experience with Oracle CX. Now I'll pass it over to your webinar host for today, Martin Langley, so he can introduce himself and tell you about what he does at Oracle.
Thank you, Rachel, and good morning, everybody. So, as Rachel said, I'm Martin Langley. I'm the Senior Vice President at Oracle, looking after our global sales operations function. So just to give you some background, I've been at Oracle for just over 20 years. I spent sort of first decade working out of Europe in a number of roles in the UK and on a European centre, and then the last 10 years working here out of our HQ for our corporate organisation based in Redwood Shores in Northern California. So during my tenure at Oracle, I've had a number of different roles through sales, customer service, sort of finance, and now sort of for the last 7 years, I've had the operations role for sales ops. And I've had a sort of unique perspective of how all the different teams work together. So it was very interesting when I was approached about this role. What was very interesting to me was this sort of transformation that we were just beginning to embark on internally. A lot of it, driven by the shift to cloud computing and our focus on that. And again, this was really this pivot from a product-based company, which we've been running pretty successfully for a number of years, a number of decades even, to more of a service-orientated structure. And really looking at internally in our operations, specifically around sales, but it sort of encompasses more than just sales, today's discussion, but ensuring that we were set up to operate in a more digitalized world that sort of focused on how our markets were transforming and how we wanted to service our customers. So at the beginning of my tenure, I looked at, I had a number of interviews with customers. I really wanted to understand the buying experience that our customers were going through and the perception that they had of Oracle. And, what I got from a consistent feedback was this perception that we were difficult to do business with. And this sort of manifests in a sort of certain number of consistent pieces of feedback. Number one, there was a lot of negotiations involved when dealing with Oracle. And this is really irrespective of the size of the deal. Now, I think there's an appreciation on larger deals are more complex. There's going to be larger teams involved from both Oracle side and the customer side. So there was appreciation there. The feedback that I really honed in on was even on the smaller deals, that there was an expectancy from our customers to be more sort of focused and have greater velocity. We're still having heavy negotiations. There's still a lot of people involved. I think the second area, again, that plays a little bit into the negotiations was the approval process. So a lot of approvals were needed. Reps would speak to customers. They would have to then go back to the internal approvals team. There was a lot of back and forth. And again, this sort of added to the frustration around velocity of deal progress. So, when I came on board, we really wanted to look at sort of recalibrating or reimagining our buying experience. So we wanted this to be a lot more customer centric, and we also wanted to remove frustrations internally as well, because our customers' experiences and frustrations were mirrored to our internal experiences as well. So they were very closely connected. So that was sort of an area that we wanted to focus on. Now, in parallel to that, we were also, as we moved to the cloud, there was a lot of new markets that opened us to us. So traditionally, Oracle has been sort of very prevalent and successful in large Fortune 500 customers that had big IT spends and had great partnerships, strategic partnerships with Oracle. With our move to the cloud, we really opened up a new set of markets in the sort of small and medium business sector, what we refer to internally, and I think is a term that people will know as the SMB. And our question is how we best service those customers. Those transactions are not as complex, however, they are more voluminous. So we need to make sure that we have velocity to handle that. And in addition to that, we then also made a significant investment under our prior CEO, Mark Hurd, of actually these hub centers, global sales centers. And we actually employed over a number of years, thousands of reps that worked out of these centers. And that's part of the organization that we refer to as our digital sales organization. Now, again, these tend to be young professionals, either straight out of college or second sales jobs that sort of sit within these centers and help service our customers and work with our customers in a more digital way. And again, when we looked at our tools and our processes, we really kind of challenged ourselves to say, look, what we have today, does that operate in this new space we really want to penetrate? And again, the resounding feedback we got was, no, we need to focus on this area. So that really drove a lot of the rationale. And today I'm going to cover predominantly the purchasing experience. But in order to set that up and provide you some of the feedback around the foundation of what we needed to do in order to transform the experience, I'm going to give you an overview of our sales CX platform. It's our single integrated platform that we manage all selling activity. And I'm going to give you a view on that and how we move to that internally, because I think that then tees up and explains the sort of enablement factors through the systems that we were able to then sort of reimagine our purchasing experience. The final thing I'll cover is just lessons learned. So, I'm very transparent with some of the challenges. We've certainly made great progress. We've still got things to do. We still need to improve in a number of areas, but definitely I'll share the sort of lessons that we've learned as we've gone through this journey over the last 4 or 5 years. So why change? There's the fundamental underlying reason for Oracle. We have a principle that we use all of our own tools, our own software to manage our business. And we have a huge range of products, as I'm sure you're all aware, and we utilize those in every possible way we can. So that is almost a given. So that's the sort of principle. However, on top of that, due to this investment we made in reps, we really wanted to look at rep productivity. The current process, you'll get a picture of it as I walk through it. Sort of the historical process was not lined up and designed with rep productivity in mind, and that often created frustration both internally and our sales force, but more importantly, that played out in front of customers. The second one, which sort of takes us to the second point as well, which is we really wanted to improve our customers' buying experience and get in front of some of the challenges that we felt were not, could be avoided on certain levels of deals. So to take you back 6 years, this was a picture of effectively our CX flow. It was certainly wouldn't call it a platform because it was multiple different applications. And some of the frustrations that manifested here is that we had different applications, they overlapped, that we didn't have great integration where we needed it across all these different parts of the flow. And then really the one thing that jumped out at me when we were interviewing reps is this concept that we actually had multiple IDs for a single deal. So in one instance, I would see a rep who would have a spreadsheet next to, on one of the windows on his machine, and he would have a list of the different IDs for the different applications. So it just was not a well-designed end-to-end flow. And again, it wasn't purposeful that way. What we found is we had multiple different teams that were involved in the deal, had their own application, and therefore they designed their part of the flow with their users in mind. And again, it created a suboptimal end-to-end process that internally was frustrating and difficult to navigate. So when we looked at how we address this, we sort of focused on 4 core principles. First, and probably most importantly, we looked at our end-to-end processes. So as I said, historically, we'd had a coming together of different teams' processes, and it wasn't optimized end-to-end. So that was the very first thing we did. We looked at this end-to-end, we looked at the experience, and we looked at where we could simplify, where were steps unnecessary, duplicative, and really challenged ourselves to get the process as streamlined for the direct output and the objective, which was to serve our customers better. The next area, again, which is our mantra internally, we wanted to leverage more our CX suite. So even 6 years ago, we had a number of different applications as part of the CX platform that we weren't using internally. So we really wanted to drive utilize the power of our entire CX platform to create an end-to-end selling motion and drive that as much on our technology as possible. Now, in addition to that, and this will become more evident when I show you sort of a picture of our CX platform, we do rely on our PaaS platform, what we call our platform as a service applications. And predominantly we do this for two things. We drive innovation. If we want to make a change, if there's a business process or an area that we want to focus on, and it's something that's through innovation, we use our PaaS applications to sort of extend our reps' experience. The second area we use PaaS is, Oracle's a very large, complex company. We sell a whole host of products across multiple different paradigms, be it cloud, hardware, license, industry solutions, consulting. And so therefore, we do have some niche processes. And so those things that are niche to Oracle that perhaps wouldn't be applicable for every other customer, we also use PaaS to sort of drive that those activities. And then finally, transforming the rep experience. As I sort of said already, the previous design wasn't with the sort of rep in mind, so we really challenged ourselves and the different supporting teams through the organization to sort of look through the lens of the rep to see how can we really improve this? How can we make it more efficient for both our reps and our customers? So I'll just give you a quick chronological timeline of how we really created our CX platform today. So we implemented Oracle Sales Cloud, which is our CRM cloud application. We then followed that up with Eloqua for our marketing activities, both in marketing and sales. We implemented Service Cloud, which we now use for click-to-chat and ticketing across all of our CX platform. Everything, a rep is just one click-to-chat away to get support. We have CPQ. We implemented CPQ about 3.5 years ago, and we use that, really a lot of what I covered today around the buying experience is predicated on the CPQ implementation. But that's our configure, price and quoting application, our cloud application. And then finally, just a year ago, we implemented CX Service, which is sort of embedded in Oracle Sales Cloud. And then we use CX Service for integration activities and collaboration between our 20,000 plus sales reps and our 10,000 solution engineers. So they all work together on a single system around a single object to help service the customers. So I'll quickly show you, this is a picture of our platform today. And again, it's very much our Oracle CX platform. We think of this as a single platform. We built the experience around a single experience. So when you have a deal, there's now one ID, the opportunity ID from Sales Cloud, that is prevalent in all of the different sort of modules that we have. And so now a rep just has to track one transaction through the flow, end to end. And again, predominantly, you'll see in the sort of teal colors, predominantly these are standard CX services available to all of our customers, be it Sales Cloud, Service, CPQ, Mobile, Eloqua. But in addition to that, you'll see the second sort of the row, which is customer engagement planning, customer connect, and customer context. These are sort of applications that we've extended as part of our CX suite, which is fully integrated into our platform for sort of things that either drive innovation or drive something that's niche to Oracle. And then maybe I'll give a couple examples of that. So as you see there, Customer Connect, we wanted to create an engagement model that really was focused on digital selling as we expanded, invested in our hub strategy. So we actually worked with our development organization, to build a capability that was interaction heavy, logging of interactions, predicated on a lot of activity that was digitally driven, be it by phone, email, or social, and have that connected into our sales system. So we've been live with this version, our platform application now, for about 18 months. And the great thing for our customers is we did this as a dual project with development. And this will now be part of a new module that's going to get released in Sales Cloud for our customers, for our CX sales customers next calendar year. The second example I give is around customer context. So this is like a customer 360 view of our customers. And we use here a PaaS app that pulls information from multiple different sources that are unique to Oracle to a certain extent, and presents it back to reps to give them a 360 view of their customer. So again, this, although the concept I think is generic across all customers, some of the data sources and the way that we collect this information was somewhat unique to Oracle, which sort of made us take this path. But again, the power is that we use majority of the transactions to just core SaaS services. We're on a quarterly upgrade cycle, just like our customers. We are one of the customers. We're treated exactly the same. We're in the fleet of other customers as well. We get all the benefits of new upgrades, etc., every quarter. And then we really utilize this PaaS, which is somewhat unique to Oracle with the breadth of services, to kind of extend and make our entire platform complete. So again, I think it was important for me to give you that viewpoint, because that, I think, sort of sets us up and talks, a lot of that is the foundation of what we've been able to achieve with the customer purchasing experience. So the vision was as simple as the slide says. We wanted to deliver an accelerated buying experience that makes the purchasing fast and simple. So very easy to say, fairly difficult to do, if I'm being very sort of candid. There's a lot of teams involved historically, so we really needed to work through the sort of change management element, but also sort of look at every aspect and really challenge ourselves and other teams that we are really focusing on this vision. So again, some of the business challenges I've already covered. We had multiple quoting systems. They were not integrated well. There was disparate workflow and multiple logins. But on top of that, we had issues with, and certainly in our cloud deals, of incomplete and inaccurate configurations. We didn't have a strong configuration model, and it was very much up to the reps to understand how products related to each other and where they were necessary and mandated versus not. In addition to that, we have a number of additional services that we have tailored for our customers that they sell in combination with cloud services and some of our other businesses as well. When we reviewed the quoting data, we felt like they were not being positioned with our customers in an appropriate way. So there was no real, again, it was somewhat, we were reliant on the rep to really understand what the additional services were and when they were most appropriately sort of should be presented to customers to help solve their business problems. And then also from a resource perspective, we had over 300 quoters globally that supported our 20,000 reps. And predominantly just because it was very complicated to do, to produce quotes, and you needed to have a huge amount of knowledge to make sure you could get that correct. So we sort of underpinned that shortcoming with a good number of resources, which is fine. I mean, reps typically like to have support, have other people help them work through things. However, what we find, and we did this review, the more people it touches, the slower it is. And again, this sort of directly sort of related to the feedback that we got from customers. The amount of time it took to execute a deal was just didn't meet their expectations. So what did we do? I mean, again, I can't stress this enough. The first thing we really focused on was the business process engineering. When we look at these types of projects internally, like exec level projects, we try and focus them into sort of 4 core areas of simplify, empower, delight, and automate. And so from a simplification perspective, it's probably the largest effort and to get done and to change people's mindsets. But we got a lot of feedback around our agreements. They were long. There was lots of T's and C's involved. There was lots of amendments or additional comments at the end of them. They were difficult to view. And often then when they were presented to customers, the first thing the customer would do would have been bring in their legal team, whether this was a deal for, $1 million or if it was a deal for $10,000. So we really looked at simplifying our agreements. We removed a number of the clauses that weren't specific to that very deal. And then again, in our standard agreement, we decreased that by over 50%. The ordering document that we produce for every sort of order with our customers, we actually reduced that from 13 down to 2 pages. So great, a lot of effort to work with our business practices teams and our legal teams to do that simplification. Another area that created a time sap was around approvers. So we actually removed an entire tier. So we had 4-level approval process. We removed an entire tier from that. So we reduced it by 25%. And predominantly we did this just by looking at our approval trends, understanding who added value where. And one of the levels we found, sort of somewhat shockingly, but maybe we should have known this, but one of the levels was almost just a pass-through. So 95% plus of what was put in front of this approval level was just approved. So didn't really add any value. And again, that 5% can be handled across the other 3 tiers. The second area was around empowering. So not only simplifying, empowering reps to actually drive some of the options that customers request or request to be added or removed from the ordering document, giving them the capability to actually manage that themselves. So what we did is we looked at our top requests that we deemed as to be non-egregious and actually said, right, are we comfortable with the rep making this call? And if so, let's enable them from a practice perspective, but then also through CPQ, it labeled them from within the actual application itself to select those options and therefore amend the ordering document for the customer per their discussions. From a delight perspective, we actually implemented a new product from Oracle now called the Oracle Learning Cloud. And that gives us the ability to do in-app learning. So across certain elements, as we monitored and watched reps, we found there were certain parts of the process where they were struggling, and they needed, they were reaching out to my support team to get support. So we actually provided in-application, or what we call just-in-time learning, on certain parts of the process, so they can sort of self-serve. Again, that is the first port from a support perspective. If then they still have additional questions, it's just one click away to actually interface with the chat team that supports the whole platform. And then finally, this ability to automate. And what we found interviewing with our reps, and again, it sort of played out with the velocity of the deals, is that reps wanted to have control end to end of the transaction. So even as much as they like the help and support, they preferred the fact of being able to control their own destiny end to end. And what we've done by enabling those other 3 points through our CPQ cloud implementation is actually increase our automation pretty significantly. And so I'll give you a teaser now. We were at 2% sort of self-served or automated end-to-end transactions when we first embarked on in this project 5 years ago. And then I don't want to spoil it, but I'll give you, as we talk about the sort of realizations of the effort, I'll tell you where we are now. So just to set context, our CPQ, which is the sort of main foundational part of the platform that has helped us drive these efficiencies and changes, it is very large. We have 41,000 CPQ users on any given week. All of our sales activity goes through CPQ internally at Oracle. So all of our lines of business, so it supports cloud, hardware, license, consulting, our industry solutions. So there's a whole range of different products and services that we use CPQ to actually quote and work with our customers. And then it's 20 billion of our revenue actually goes through CPQ as well. So again, it's the largest CPQ implementation that we have. It's all on one single instance, and it supports thousands of different configurations. So what has it delivered to us? So as I said before, we were at 2% before. Now 70% of our deals are automated. And by that, I mean the rep manages the transaction end to end without support from any of the supporting teams. And as I said, we've been hovering around that number now for probably 12 to 18 months. And when we then dissect it a little further and we take out the complex deals, which by definition require negotiation, will require sort of legals involved and a lot more terms being considered, we take those out, we're closer to 90%. So we've really enabled through this activity reps to be able to service their customers end to end in a more expedited way. This then goes on to the sort of next bullet, which is our average deal size. The deal velocity has increased 2x. So it takes half the time from when a quote is created through to when we get acceptance of the customer. That's the 50% of the time that it used to take. we haven't covered it in depth today, but to support these thousands of different services, we have a huge number of configurations across all of our different businesses. When we talk to the product release group who manage that element here internally at Oracle, they'll tell you they've had a 4x reduction in time for them to actually release new products. So again, we do twice monthly release. We have a twice monthly release schedule for the different products. That's all run as a single activity across all the lines of business. Again, sort of capitalizing on the power of CPQ. And then the last one, which really was a big problem for us, it was accuracy. And certainly, as we pivot more of our business to cloud, a core part of what was the sales activity and the quoting activity flows through right the way through booking, but onto provisioning and how we provision our customers. And what we were finding is that we had significant issues with configurations and sort of relationships as part of the quoting process that then would play out through to and create frustrations for our customers when it came to provisioning. So in using CPQ and really utilizing the configuration capabilities, we've actually we've reduced significantly some of those accuracy challenges that we had. I think the one other point as well, I said sort of earlier about additional services, the configurations now suggest additional services that should be sold with our core products. So again, what we're finding is, 100% of the time, reps are positioning or having suggested services to be positioned for their customers to help them be successful. So what have we learned along the way? So number one focus, I started with this point, it's something that we continually do and test, is looking at the whole process end to end from our customer's experience. Is it optimized around their experience? And again, this is a continual process. We started on this to gather the first set of information that I covered today. We continue to do this, talk to customers, understand how we can improve. That focus, never leaves us. The second, and probably a close second, but just second to that, is really observing the users during the experience design. So we actually sat and with hundreds of reps across the globe and just observed how they interacted with the tools, how they interacted with the processes, and how then that played out with their engagement with the customers. And we really took that on board to design an experience that was optimized around the rep being able to serve their customers. And then the third point, again, I sort of mentioned this earlier, but it's so critical to sort of simplify first and automate. It is so difficult to automate complexity. And again, you create situations, you create extensions and customizations that you're trying to be able to automate something that in its first rate could really be simplified. So again, our mantra through this is really reviewing the thing end to end, and then identifying and challenging ourselves to simplify as much as possible before moving to the automation stage, which of course gives us some of those great metrics that I shared. So I'll sort of pause here. This is a couple of testimonies, one from a customer, one from an internal rep. And again, we certainly aren't done in this space. We have more opportunities to improve different parts of the process, really end to end. And it's something that we review with Safa, our CEO, on a monthly basis. She's very interested in ensuring that we focus and challenge ourselves on serving our customers in a more efficient and effective way. So, we continually, it's a buying experience it's an evolution. We'll continue to work through getting feedback from our customers and our internal users to make improvements. So that sort of concludes the content I wanted to cover and the experience that I wanted to share. I'm happy at this point to take any questions.
Awesome. We'll get started with the Q&A then, Martin. So first question for you. What was the most challenging part of the transformation?
Yeah, good question. So I guess it was getting the realization across the teams that we had something real here that we needed to address. So again, the way we were set up across the deal process, we were pretty siloed. And people have built up processes and applications that were very self-servant for their teams. And so from a change management perspective, having people sort of extrapolate themselves from their niche and sort of focused areas and see the broader end to end. And, every team had to change. Sales had to change. Business practices had to be flexible. Our deal management and contracts organization were flexible. Our legal teams were flexible. Our back office teams. Because, there's still multiple teams involved, but actually having them sort of think about this end to end through the experience that ultimately, plays out in front of our customers. I think once we got that piece, once we got everyone at the table with the right mindset, we really did see an escalation of our activities and our ability to sort of drive change.
Awesome. And just a reminder for everybody on the call, you can submit your questions through the Q&A functionality at the bottom of your screen. And with that, second question for you, Martin. Did you encounter any resistance from reps, or I'll tack onto that, any other parties that were involved in these changes?
Yes. So I think there was certainly an element of our rep population and community that were very happy with the process. As much as I sort of showed you very transparently, very disjointed, multiple tools, our reps that had tenure knew how to navigate the process. So they didn't really feel the suboptimal element of it as much as a newer rep, as an example. Again, and part of the change we did in sort of the end-to-end review and the simplification was put more onus then on the rep to manage this thing end-to-end. And again, there was a portion, albeit a fairly small portion, that very much liked having admin support along every step of the way, and they knew how to get things through the approval process, and they knew how to ensure if there was an invoicing issue, they could call the right person. So I think that would be, from a sales perspective, was the community that we really needed to win over. And then, from a broader perspective, sort of to the first question to a certain extent, I think no one team was more resistant than other. I think it was the collection across all the teams and their own points of view that created the resistance. And again, once I think we got in front of, and I used many of the graphics that I've shared here today and really gave people a picture end to end of what the experience was, there was some sort of aha moments during that meeting. And again, I think once we got over that, our progress sort of accelerated.
Cool. And this is an interesting question. Are you able to share some of the improvements you're thinking about for the future?
Yes, absolutely. So I think today we use, from the acceptance perspective, we use our CX Commerce. I didn't include it in our slide deck, in the picture of our CX platform, because it sort of gets a little busy. But we use our CX Commerce application, which is part of what we call our Oracle store. We branded our Oracle store. And today we have a lot of the documents can be placed online, and we have this concept of click to accept. So they can be accepted via one click rather than a sort of archaic order document, print, sign it, and sort of send it by mail. So we're pushing more and more, and it's something that we introduced about 2 years ago, but we're pushing that more and more, and we're starting to see, I think there was some reluctance from the customer base, I think, to operate in that manner originally, but it's a focus that we want to do. It's just, this concept of a digital transaction really is end to end. And so, we'll continue to focus on driving more of our transactions through our customers to be accepted online. And that's the sort of acceptance of the terms, but then also the kind of initiation of the invoicing and the billing piece as well. So that it's in play today. It's something that we will continue to focus on and drive forward.
Awesome. And that's the last question that we have in our queue for the live Q&A. If you have any more questions for Martin, you can enter them there. But moving on, Martin, if you wouldn't mind going to the last slide, we'll, if you're ready to wrap up your presentation, we'll give everyone a couple minutes back in their day.
Well, as we've got a few minutes, I did want to just share one thing that we've been working on with development on, which now is going to be released in the coming weeks for our customers, which is our new mobile platform. And so we spent a lot of time working with development, optimizing the rep experience and our field reps experience specifically. That I, spend a lot of time on the road, and we've created a new CX platform that, as I say, will be released in the end of the summer for all of our customers. That's very much focused on the productivity of our reps. And again, I won't sort of go through all of the points here, but it's sort of optimized around task flows. It's got voice activated. It's biometric authentication. The feedback we've got from our internal reps is very, very positive. They love using it. They feel like it's really helped with productivity. And again, there's a lot of this is in the design of how we've built this. And again, we've got a very exciting piece around global search. So it's this sort of fast and simple search capability that covers all objects in our CRM system. It makes it get access to what people need to get to, certainly in a mobile in a mobile scenario, in a very efficient way. So again, for those of us that are on our Sales Cloud customers, you will get this. You'll get this in 20C, which is the next release that's coming at the end of the summer. Okay, I don't know if there's any other things, maybe a couple more questions, Rachel?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So first question, Martin, that came in. Can you please elaborate on the JIT learning tool incorporated and the relationship to blockchain, if that's applicable as well?
Yeah, so the just-in-time learning tool is Oracle Guided Learning. It's actually an acquisition we did of a startup based out of Tel Aviv in Israel. And really what it allows us to do is place widgets on screens or on certain certain fields on screens that reps can click on to get more information. And so that's the one way we use it. The other way we use it is when we do a new release, rather than sort of sending out long emails explaining to people what it is that we get sort of fairly low readership, we can actually present as people log in for the first time, and we can present it, set a counter to however many times we want to. It's configurable. And then the first thing they see is like new release. And now basically we technically an embedded video there that goes through and explains to the reps in 2 or 3 minutes what changes we've introduced, what improvements we've made. So it's something that we've sort of started experimenting the last sort of 12 months. And we're really now, from an enablement perspective, we're really becoming heavily reliant on it. And, I sort of challenged my team that I'd love to get out of the case. We still send emails, sort of broad brush emails across changes. I've really challenged my team in this coming fiscal as to whether we can sort of discontinue that and use the embedded guided learning to get to reps directly as they're actually, entering a certain part of the process, be it opportunity management, quoting, etc. From blockchain, there's not really any blockchain technology in anything what I've talked about today.
Awesome, thanks. And I know you touched on this a little before, but what was the end user feedback?
Again, I think generally the end user feedback is very positive, right? I think it's sometimes the feedback is a little personality driven, but just the overwhelming feedback is that reps appreciate having kind of autonomy around managing the deal end to end, and then reaching out in a sort of systematic way to get feedback that they need or support that they need. But it's not kind of passed around from team to team. They're waiting for others to do certain elements to progress the transaction. I think the other thing, the feedback from the other teams, which is really important, which is the sort of supporting cast, is that they're now pulled into these deals, certainly the volume-based deals, which tend to be sort of lower value, less frequently. So it means their resources can focus where we need them to focus on, which is the larger sort of deals that require negotiation, require these additional support from these teams. So So that's the feedback we've had internally.
Awesome. And another question just came in. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this right, but can you offer new programs to your customers in a link for a free webinar? I think that, Caroline, I'll address that with you offline, but thank you for submitting your question. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you everyone for attending. If you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts in this quick poll that is about to come up on your screen. After the webinar today, we have recorded this and we'll be providing a replay on Video Hub. You'll receive a follow-up email within 48 hours that will give you instructions to access the replay, as well as a link to view what's coming up in the Oracle at Oracle webinar series. If you have any questions that you would like answered in relation to this webinar or other topics that are related to Oracle at Oracle, you can reach out to the email address that you see on your screen, which is oracle@oracle-contact_ww@oracle.com. And we'll connect you to folks that can get your questions answered. With that, thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you on future Oracle at Oracle webinars. And Martin, thank you for a great presentation, and we'll give everyone a couple minutes back.
Okay, thank you, everybody.